we have a special guest on the program today. Chris Galler is on the program. Chris is the CEO of the Minnesota Association of Realtors, and he has been in the industry as long as I have. So
Mid-80s.
30 years, isn't it? Or
Mid-80s, yeah. We were both
well, that's
kids.
longer, yeah. Everyone who is in real estate from every company knows who you are and what you do. I think that you have probably know more about our industry than anyone in the state. And I think it's amazing because you have such a perspective from every company. You interact with every CEO of every real estate company, all the committees, legislators, senators, administration, state administration. Nobody knows more about our industry than you do. I'm so thrilled to have you here. I want to talk about a specific issue that has arisen in this, and that deals with our investors and our rental properties that we have throughout the state. Again, we have Chris Galler on the program, CEO of the Minnesota Association of Realtors, the largest trade organization in the state of Minnesota. And last segment, we talked a little bit about the impact that COVID had on the early markets, but something else that has come out of that, Chris, is our rental properties and our rental clients that we have that are thinking of looking at investment properties or owning investment properties. Why don't you share with us what's going on from a rent standpoint and
Sure.
What some of those changes might be?
Okay, Keith. First, in the state of Minnesota, first at the federal level, I should say, the Trump administration put in early an eviction moratorium. So it said if you're in your house, whether you're renting it or owning it, you cannot be evicted for them it was 60 days. Then the state of Minnesota came in, Governor Walz and his executive order also passed a eviction prohibition, and that's still in effect now. Mm-hmm. Now, people probably saw in the news recently that the CDC has come through because there's some states that don't have those in place, and they've done a blanket one through the end of the year, through December 31st. And the reasoning for doing it probably makes sense in that you don't want people to not have housing.
Right.
And you want to keep them as contained as possible. The difficulty is the renters don't have to pay rent. Mm-hmm. At this point in time, they can't be evicted for not paying rent. Let's say that, because all of the orders say they still have to pay rent, and you can assess late fees and penalties and all that. The problem is if somebody doesn't pay rent for 5 or 6 or 8 months, how are you ever going to get those dollars back?
Right. And does the owner, the landlord, still has to keep making his payments?
Make their mortgage payment, right?
Right.
Yeah, they have to make their mortgage payments. They have to keep the property up. They have all the maintenance, refrigerators break, hot water heaters, whatever. They have all of that maintenance. And the thought is that, well, these are just big companies. And 42%, NAR has done research on this, 42% are mom and pop.
Right.
They're small LLCs and a lot of it is retirement income for people. They use that rent. They paid for that house over a period of time, and they wanted that income in order to be able to sustain their lifestyle.
Now, would the landlord have the ability to sell that property? So if I own the property, you're renting, you're not paying your rent. I go, I can't afford it. Can I just sell the property?
Who's going to buy it?
Well, put it on the market.
Yeah, but who wants to buy a non-producing asset? I mean,
well, maybe somebody wants to buy the house to live in.
Well, you can't get the people out. They have a lease.
Right. Even if you sell the property.
Even if there's some very fine things that they can do related to it. So if you have a family member that would need to move into the property because of the COVID or whatever, maybe there's too many in a house, then you could evict them. If they're breaking laws, then you can evict them. I think the amazing thing was the CDC's rule is it only affects people with incomes up to $99,000 and married couples with incomes to $198,000. Well, that's everybody.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And, realistically, if you're making $99,000 a year, you should be able to make your rent payment.
Right. If they're still, but those people, are those people still able to not pay rent even though they're working and making the money?
They're supposed to pay rent.
Okay.
The problem is the landlord doesn't have a way to evict them. So they can fill out a form and say, I meet all the things. I'm not making as much money as I did before. I can't move because I'm afraid of COVID.
Okay.
All kinds of different things.
So that could totally be a play. So I could still be fully working making my 99,000 single person, or me and my wife could make 200,000 essentially. $198,000. And even though we have the financial resource to pay, I don't have to if I'm scared.
If you fill out a little form that says that this is the reason why I can't, and I'm unsure about my future, you could say that. Or you could lie all the way down the form, and they can't get rid of you until you would get in front of a judge, and you won't be able to get in front of a judge until December 31st now. And then the real problem is, how is the judge going to handle all the cases that are going to be in front of them? And if somebody comes to them and says, yeah, I've had these people, I've been renting to them, they now owe me $12,000 for past rent, and I'd like to evict them. Is a judge going to evict them in Minnesota in the middle of January?
No.
No.
So now you go more months.
So what relief is there for the 47%, which is our clients, who own, like you say, it's 1 or 2, 3, 4 properties that they're renting. That is their retirement. They've believed all these years that real estate is it's an inflation hedge. It's the stable thing. You want to be a millionaire, buy $1 million worth of real estate and have someone else pay for it. They're called renters.
Right.
All of a sudden, that model now is out the window, because with a stroke of a pen, and once it's done once, the next time is easier. Now you've got investors are saying, well, wait a minute, that's maybe not such a safe investment as we were once led to believe. What happens to rental values, and what happens to, we see a huge now wave of foreclosures coming. And this month there was a spike in delinquencies. It was a pretty large spike in delinquencies. But we just see this wave coming again for a number of reasons. But we're talking about rental properties now. So what relief is there in being talked about for the owners?
NAR and a group of other housing advocacy organizations are working to say we need rental assistance to go to the landlords. We need them to be able to maintain their properties and stay whole, because if they end up in foreclosure, then the renter is in a difficult position either way.
Right. Well, what happened is the renter's still in a pickle, but the bank is going to get the property back with the lease in tow.
Right.
Yeah.
So now it would just shift from you owning the property, Keith, to going back to the bank. The bank is still stuck in the same position. You just crushed your credit.
Right.
The homeowner is still living in the home for free.
Right.
Until such time that
what happens when the lease is up?
The lease is up, then they're to be extended through that period of the
so even after the lease is expired, they can stay in the property.
They could stay in the property, saying they have no place to go. And then the other questions will be, well, if somebody didn't pay and they do get evicted, say in January or February or whenever, does that go on their rental record? So that future landlords can see that they didn't pay during that period, and that'll be a huge question.
Right.
That'll be a legislative issue going forward, because I'm sure there'll be organizations that'll argue, well, no, it was an exceptional period.
Is there current legislation being proposed at the state level right now?
Not on that.
Not on that specific
The governor's order's up on Friday, so he'll extend it. He's already said he will, so that means the eviction piece will stay in place. He has to do this now every month. So for a lot of people, before the CDC rule, there was a thought, well, maybe at some point it'll stop and we can get on with business, and hopefully the courts can figure out how they're going to handle all of these cases on top of all the other cases that they're having to handle right now. And
don't you see a huge delay?
Huge delay.
Yeah, they're not going to get to these. So people could literally be in a property for probably 18 months, 12 to 24 months, right?
Potentially. 18 might be a little long. I think the courts will get it down to a system at some point in time.
Okay.
They're having the same difficulties everybody else is, in that they don't have court rooms running full like they did before. They're doing a lot of Zoom hearings and stuff. They're getting back somewhat, but they're not at full speed. And then bringing in people to have the hearings gets to be a complicating factor.
What about the industry going forward then, coming out the back end of COVID? Let's just assume that, as I believe, probably the week after the election, most of the COVID talk will go away, but the residual will be there. What is the industry thinking then going forward in terms of attracting new members or getting new agents in, or agents keeping their license because they're, if you look at the sales, I mean, our sales are pretty much the same as a year ago. I mean, we have had sales.
Oh yeah.
It's just, but I see in my own office that a lot of agents have just disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that there's going to be a tremendous fallout from agents in the next renewal cycle, or?
We're assuming that there will be a fallout, and it's happening for a number of reasons. I think there was a core of the business that made it through the recession, which was a very difficult time. You remember we lost almost 9,000 members, and then they've come back. But business has changed in that 10-year period, and I think that the second group now will start to say, you know what, it's time. As you know, the median age in the business is 54 in the state of Minnesota, so it means half of those members are above 54. I think a lot of them are going to start to decide, you know what, the business is changing faster than what I want, and the unsurety about the COVID is why I think you're not seeing as many people in the office. Is they're saying, I've just got to hunker down and be safe, because older people are the ones that seem to be the most impacted.
Yeah, it seems like some things are changing that for those of us who have been around a long time and have seen, so many changes over the last 30 years, a lot of it for good.
Yeah.
A lot of it just makes the business so much better and so much more efficient and dialed in. And some of it is just, it's not as fun as it was at one time, because of that personal connection, that if you're a people person, you like being face to face with people, and if you're barred from doing that, it's kind of like, well, gee whiz, this isn't as much fun.
This used to be a lot more fun.
I'm
right?
out.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.